Detective Patrick Kennedy. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. So this movie, which is the Jeffrey Dahmer files, is this a film, a dramatic film, or a documentary?
It's a feature film documentary, so it takes in aspects of acting like a real movie and also pointed interviews with three featured people, the medical examiner, the lead interrogator, and the next-door neighbor.
All right, so you were the guy that was called, the police officers who arrested Jeffrey Dahmer. They were called to the scene. They go in there, they arrest him. They go, uh-oh, this guy, something's going on here. I think they found a human head in the refrigerator. And then they, of course, called for detectives, and you were the guy who ended up getting assigned to the case, right?
That's correct. I got sent there after, and it should be kind of cleared up that they didn't get sent there. They were down the block from his apartment on a different call when his last victim, the last guy he tried to kill, because they were both drunk, they got in a fight. The guy got away. The guy ran out of his apartment and ran down the block to the police officers and alerted them, and then took them back to his apartment. And that's when they entered the apartment. They found some photographs of some mutilated bodies, and when they tried to arrest him, a big fight broke out between these two big burly Milwaukee police officers and Jeffrey Dahmer. And after the fight is when I got called after he got arrested. So when I got there, we found the freshly severed human head in the refrigerator. From there, I took Jeffrey Dahmer downtown, and I spent the next 6 weeks interrogating him.
When they find this head in the refrigerator, this was from a victim that was killed how much earlier?
Well, this victim wasn't killed very much earlier. He was like one of the last victims. But because Jeffrey Dahmer told me he preserved this head in the refrigerator, we found 11 other skulls and heads in freezers and in his closet. But this one he kept very freshly kept because he felt this was the most beautiful man that he had ever met, and he wanted to keep him fresh so he could take him out and make love to him and fondle him and touch him.
Oh my God. So would he masturbate with this human head then?
Oh yes. In a apartment freezer, we found about 7 frozen heads, and he told me he would take them all out at various times and set them up and have oral sex with them and kiss them and masturbate to them.
Oh my God!
Kiss them?
That's what they call fragilism. So he was always masturbating.
And you, of course, had never seen anything even close to this, I'm assuming.
Oh no! I mean, I had worked homicide. I had your run-of-the-mill homicide and your run-of-the-mill homicide confession. I mean, domestic violence, and I shouldn't be so light about it. These are all horrible crimes.
Yeah.
But no, nothing that even came close to this.
So this head that they found originally, they open up the fridge, they see this head. I mean, did it look just like, when you saw this, does it look just like a head that was freshly cut off? Is it all like shrimp?
The word surreal is used quite a bit, but it really was surreal here. When I got called to the scene, actually, the call to me, meet the officers who said they found a head in the refrigerator. On my way there with my partner, we were even making jokes, saying, yeah, let's not lose our head over this investigation. We got there, and I saw the condition of the 2 officers, which was obvious they had been in a hell of a fight, and the suspect on the ground bleeding and handcuffed by the legs and the hand. I asked them, I said, what the hell is going on here? And they just said, look in the refrigerator. Well, when I looked in the refrigerator was a clean and empty refrigerator except for an open box of Arm & Hammer baking soda in the back, and a box in the middle containing this freshly severed, bloodless human head. It was a black male with his eyes and its mouth open with an expression of almost excitement or surprise. So when I saw it, I mean, I can say that I had been a police officer for many years and seen some horrendous things, and I myself was armed, my partner was armed, the suspect was handcuffed with 2 other burly police officers standing over him. But I can tell you that the sight was so weird that everything in my whole being told me, man, you need to get the hell out of here. I knew I couldn't leave, but it was the most disturbing sight that I had ever seen.
How did he get the blood out of the head? Did he drain the blood, or how did he keep this from?
Very interesting question. I asked him the same thing as we found, pictures of he would take Polaroids of the various positions he had his victims in as he was cutting them open. And he said to me, Pat, you've been to autopsies. Dead people don't spurt blood all over. So he would put them in the bathtub, slice them open, take his viscera out, drain the blood, and then slice off the neck from like just above the shoulders.
Oh, wow.
And let it sit there for a while. And then he put it in the box. And that's the freaky thing about it. It looked like it was alive. He had kept it preserved in the refrigerator. So it was like a freshly carved steak that you would keep that doesn't have the blood on it.
Right.
And that was the weird part about it. It looked so surreal with no blood.
Yeah, in fact, I'm actually looking at a picture of this. You can find this stuff on the internet, I guess, and I'm looking at a picture of this.
I can't believe that those pictures got out on the internet. Those were all supposed to be destroyed, but within a month after I noticed there were some on the internet. So that means somehow somebody got copies of these pictures, because they should not be out. I mean, there are still relatives of these victims that are alive.
Right. So you talked to Dahmer for a period of 6 weeks. Was he open? And once he got caught, he put up obviously the fight of his life when those two police officers. He knew that if I get caught, this is it for me. But once he was caught, was he forthcoming about his crimes with you?
Very good question. You're right. He put up a hell of a fight. He paid the price for it. So it set up the perfect good cop, bad cop scenario. I mean, when I arrived on the scene, I was the good guy. The two cops who we fought with. And, it's not a good idea to fight with police. But as far as the confession goes, it took the run-of-the-mill homicide confession. Most homicide confessions, if you talk to a homicide detective, they take about 3.5 hours before the guy actually starts to crap out or to tell you what's happening. Mm-hmm. And that was about it. It was about the 3-hour and 15-minute mark after we had talked about his family, about God, about religion, about homosexuality, that he finally said, well, if I'm going to tell you, first of all, if I do tell you what I did, you'll be famous, which I laughed at. And then he said, if I am going to tell you, I might as well start at the beginning. So he started talking to me about his first homicide when he was 18 years old back in Bath, Ohio. So initially, I didn't believe him until my partner started telling me that, no, we're finding a lot of dead body parts, about 11 skulls and some penises and some hands, besides the head that I found. So then I started to take him a little bit more seriously and started to record things. So it was a very meticulous, starting with his very first one back 13 years before I met him, and then moving to West Dallas, where he killed 4 at his grandmother's house, and then into the Milwaukee area, where he finished off killing the rest of them. So that's why it took about 6 weeks, because he wasn't, I should say this, we never caught him in a lie, but he never just came out and told us stuff. I would have to ask him stuff like, when the medical examiner told us that some of the cut meat that they found in his freezer was actually human bicep that had been cut and tenderized and put into a Ziploc bag and individually stored. Only then, when I brought that to his attention, did he admit that he had been eating them. So he wasn't forthcoming, but if you asked him something, he would tell you. But he had to kind of know about it ahead of time. So we went to great expense to try to catch him in a lie to see if he was lying. Because we had to verify everything he told us, which took the work of about another 68 detectives every day. So I can only say that we never caught him in a lie. I never caught him lying to us, but it's a misnomer to think he just walked into the police station and started telling us stuff.
Right.
Very intense investigation to get it out of him.
His first, Detective Patrick Kennedy, is on the phone with us. The Jeffrey Dahmer Files is a new film. It's available on video on demand starting today, jeffthemovie.com. He committed his first murder at the age of 18 here in Ohio. what happened? What did he tell you about that? And I mean, the first time that you kill someone, I assume it must change you. Did he get a rush out of it, or what was the scenario with that first murder at that young age?
It's very interesting that you say that, because he was very good at giving me the dates and days of the days that he murdered his victims. And I remember saying to him, the first one, how can you remember so sure that it was on this day and this date 13 years ago? And his answer to me was, you never forget your first one.
Wow.
So that was very interesting. And by the time I believe that his first homicide in Ohio was accidental. He was intoxicated. The young man he was with was intoxicated. They had engaged in some light homosexual activity. And when the young man said he wanted to leave, Jeffrey Dahmer, by this time, had gone through some serious problems with his home life and his sexuality and his delving into the cutting up of animals, that when he got into a fight with this guy trying to prevent him from leaving, he hit him in the head with this barbell, and I just don't believe that he intended to kill him. That it was after he killed him, he panicked. Of course, he made love to the guy, had sex with him, and then stuck him underneath the porch for a while before he started to decompose, and then he took him into his backyard and sliced the flesh open and busted up his bones, threw the bones all around the wooded lawn of his family home there in Bath, Ohio. But that very first homicide, although it gave him a great pleasure afterwards to think about it, I do believe I don't believe he intended to kill. I think if the man would have stayed there and just engaged in homosexual activity with him, he probably wouldn't have killed him. But after this very first homicide, this is what set the change. He could never get over this. He became an alcoholic trying to get rid of this, and had all kinds of problems at home and at the University of Ohio and the military. We got kicked out for drinking. And it was only after he moved to the Milwaukee area, he told me that he decided to, after a long period of delving into his Lutheran religion and trying to become saved, that he decided, screw it. It ain't going to work. I might as well just give in to what I want. And then he started out first just by drugging people and having sex with them, and then eventually bringing them back to his apartment, drugging them, killing them, having sex with them. And then he told me getting rid of the body was just the part about cutting open the bodies and getting rid of them.
Did Jeffrey Dahmer have, when you talked to him over the 6-week period, did he obviously probably had some insight. You said that he tried to drink in order to stop these impulses and whatnot, and then finally he gave into it. But did he have any remorse, do you think, for killing these people? He may not have been able to control himself, but did he feel bad in any way, do you think?
Oh, yeah. He showed remorse early on in the confessions. He was crying mostly because he was concerned about his grandmother and his father and his mother and his stepmother and his brother, what they would think of him when they found out the horrendous things he had done. He was remorseful of the bodies of the people that he killed, their families, but at the time he was so caught up in this hedonistic pursuit of his pleasures. He found great pleasure in lying with a dead body. He found great pleasure in having sex with a dead body. He found great pleasure in cutting open and having sex with the internal organs and the viscera of a dead body. So his lust for his pleasure overcame his knowledge of knowing what he was doing was wrong. It also added the excitement of knowing that he had a secret world that he was participating in that nobody else knew about. Let's not forget, he fooled plenty of people, starting with his mom and his dad and his grandmother, not only police officers, but psychologists, probation parole officers, a judge, the building superintendent in the places where he was living. So he was very articulate. He was very bright. He could be very charming. He knew how to deal with authority figures, especially white male adult authority figures. He was a product of upper white middle-class America. So he had a lot of tools in order to help him fool people.
How many people did he kill total?
17 people.
he 17 people he killed. And in fact, the story that you told at the beginning of this conversation, Detective Patrick Kennedy is on with us, and we just have a couple more minutes with him, but he was the investigating detective on this Jeffrey Dahmer case. You said at the beginning that you know his last intended victim actually escaped, flagged down some police officers. They came back. That's how this whole thing was discovered. But that's not the first time that happened either. There was one of his victims was a 13-year-old boy who somehow escaped, was running, I believe, naked and bleeding down the street. Police were called, and he somehow, amazingly, sweet-talked those police into just saying, hey, this is my boyfriend, give him back to me, and then promptly took him upstairs and killed the guy, right?
That's correct. It's a bit of a misnomer the way that you, the urban legend is that the boy was running down the street all beat up and bleeding from the anus, but this is just not true. First, the Milwaukee Fire Department arrived on the scene and cleared the kid, so he was naked. He was intoxicated, and he was drugged. That's why he was only speaking in his native tongue, which is Laotian. If you saw the young man, you would not think he was 13 years old. I mean, he looked like a fully grown man. Let's not forget that Jeffrey Dahmer walked into a crowd of people and admitted that this was his lover and that sometimes he gets drunk and walks outside. He invited the two police officers back to his apartment where he showed them his clothes folded neatly on the couch, showed them several Polaroid photographs that he had taken of this young man where he was smiling and in different stages of disrobement. Did the officers make a mistake? Oh, they most certainly did. However, it shows his cunning and his daring. This wasn't the first time that he had fooled authority figures. And these police officers, both of whom I know, are good, honest, decent men who have given their life, put their life on the line for the citizens of Milwaukee.
Did they get reprimanded or fired or anything after that?
They were both fired. Yeah, they were both fired from the job. Obviously, what they did was they made a mistake.
Right.
It points to the fact that he was such a cunning and bright killer that he was able to fool these people. Actually, it was this incident that kind of got me to go back to graduate school, so after I left the police department, I could go into teaching at universities, which I do now, and actually talk about this thing called the police complex, where the police can't be fooled by basically people who communicate with an upper white middle class attitude. They tend to be believed more by the police than other people.
Does before I let you go, there were rumors a few years back that maybe Jeffrey Dahmer had killed Adam Walsh, who was John Walsh's little kid down in Florida, who was beheaded, and that turned out to be disproven, correct?
Right, and during the time of the FBI, they were really queer for getting us to try to get him for that. I spent a whole day just talking to him because he, to Jeffrey about this, which he never did. Let's not forget that Jeffrey Dahmer was not attracted to prepubescent people. He wanted a fully matured man to have sex with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was a male homosexual and an adult, and he preferred adult male homosexuals. He didn't care what color you were, what ethnicity you were. You'll find that all of his victims had the same kind of a body type. This is what he looked for: long, lean, attractive men of any color who were willing sex partners. And these, even with all the people that I've talked to that had sex with Jeffrey Dahmer, who he didn't kill, he only killed the ones that he found to be the most attractive. At least this is what he told me. I actually wrote a book. I just finished writing it that starts on the day I'm called to the scene and find the head of the refrigerator, and ends on the day that I shake his hand and he goes off to jail for 956 years. And the book goes more into my relationship with Jeffrey Dahmer and the inner workings of his mind, and actually what happened to me in my life during this period.
Oh, I'm sure it was crazy. So, and there were people that there were people that he was having sex with throughout this period of time that he was killing all these people. Sometimes he was killing people as frequently as once a week. And there were people that would have sex with him that he wouldn't kill, and they would just be let off the hook, I guess, huh?
Right.
Wow, what a close call that is.
He only started killing close together towards the end when he became a little bit more disorganized. But in the beginning of his killing spree in Milwaukee, he was very organized. And yes, he did have sex with many people who were in his apartment or in some of the gay bath areas here. And I've talked to them, and he did not kill them. When I asked him why, he said, well, they weren't the most attractive. They didn't appeal to him. The ones that he decided to kill were the ones that he felt were the most beautiful.
Last question before I let you go. Detective Patrick Kennedy is on with us, the detective on the Jeffrey Dahmer case. When he was killed in prison, my recollection is that he was killed by another inmate. I think beat him with a broom handle or something like that. What did you feel when you found out that he had been killed in prison?
Well, I had just walked in. I was working day shift at the time. I walked in, and the captain was on the phone from the people from the correctional institution. And as soon as I walked in, the captain said, "Hey, Kennedy, they killed your boy." So I went over to him to ask what, and that's when he told me they killed him. And I was able to actually talk to the investigator at the prison, who told me that he was killed with a barbell, similar to the hand barbell he used to kill his first victim in Bath, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
I know, it was very much of an Akuma Matata type deal, right? Also, they say that he had no defensive wounds on him. All the blows were to the front of his head, which the medical examiner there believed showed that he knew he was going to be killed, and he did not put up a fight. He watched this guy kill another guy who was also an infamous white guy who killed his wife and tried to blame it on the black community. So in prison, they got a guy who was borderline mental, told him he would be the king of the Brothers of the Struggle, which is a black gang in prison, if he would kill these two white guys. He was already in prison anyways for 2 murders, so he wasn't going anywhere. And they feel that Jeffrey Dahmer observed him kill this other guy first and knew that he was going to be killed. And he had told me that he knew he was going to be killed in prison. We got to run, guys.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Detective Patrick Kennedy, I appreciate you coming on the show. And the movie is the Jeffrey Dahmer Files, which is available on video on demand starting today. JeffTheMovie.com. Thank you, my man.